Welcome back to another episode of the What We're Watching podcast. I'm Megan.
And I'm Jenny, and today we're talking about Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants.
Yay!
I love this movie, a highly requested one for summer.
Highly requested, and I understand why.
I do too. This is the movie I think of when I think of summer 2000s movies.
Although also emotional.
I didn't remember how emotional it was until I started watching it.
Yeah, woof.
But we'll get into that.
Okay, so the logline for this movie is Bridget, Carmen, Lena, and Tibby are best friends living in Maryland. After many summers together, the four are finally going their separate ways for a few months. While Bridget heads to Mexico and Lena visits family in Greece, Carmen and Tibby stay closer to home. No matter where they are connected by a pair of jeans that they take turns sharing, pants that fit all four girls and exemplify their tight bond.
What a concept. Pants that fit all four girls. Were you into this movie as a kid?
Loved it.
Did you read the book too?
No, did you?
Yeah, I remember being obsessed with the book. And so I was kind of surprised because I didn't really remember the plot until I started watching. And I felt like I remembered the whole movie. And so I was like, wow, I think this was a bigger part of my childhood than I even remembered.
I know.
It was great.
Yeah, I love when that happens. So this movie is definitely a summer movie because it came out over Memorial Day weekend in 2005. So right on the heels of all of our favorites.
Yes.
A little PSA up top here. I have a cranky puppy in the other room. So if you hear her squeal, I'm sorry in advance. Okay, so this movie is a Deborah Martin Chase movie, and she is one of our favorite producers probably. She does a lot of awesome girly nostalgic movies like The Princess Diaries, and she is also the one behind this movie. And I found a really cool quote that talks about her and just about the whole context of when this movie came out in an article in Entertainment Weekly. So I'm just going to read it for you guys because I thought it was really good. In a season where the swarms are destined for Star Wars Episode 3 and Batman Begins, a movie based on Anne Brashare's novel about four girlfriends who share one pair of magical jeans could easily get drowned out. So that's the first part of the quote, and I think that's really good context that like Star Wars and Batman were like the big movies coming out this summer, and it would have been really easy for this like cutesy movie about girl friendship to not go anywhere, but it ended up being a huge success. We're trying to take the girl genre to a whole other level, says producer Deborah Martin Chase, and Chase should know a thing or two about the growing genre, being the unofficial go-to producer for this market, after mastering the book-to-screen adaptation with both Princess Diaries films and TV's Cinderella and the Cheetah Girls.
So she's responsible for our childhood. I kind of feel like this goes back to what we were saying in last week's episode, where we feel like the rom-coms are maybe coming back after all of this like Marvel this and Marvel that and all of these action movies, and now it seems like the lighthearted fun movies might be making a comeback, and I really hope so.
Totally. It made me think of our conversation too. So like we said, this movie is based on a novel by Anne Brashare's, and the novel was a huge success, and its sequels. They were huge books, and Warner Bros. Immediately bought the rights and then immediately asked Deborah Martin Chase to work on it. And then Deborah immediately hired Delia Ephron to write the script. And this is the same writer that wrote Bewitched, which I thought was kind of fun.
Is she related to Nora Ephron at all?
Yes. They are sisters, actually. Sisters and collaborators.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Love that. And then I also thought this was nice. They sent each draft to Anne Brashare's, the novel writer, for her approval, which I thought was cool.
I love that. Anne Brashares says that although none of the characters are based on her, she's most similar to Carmen. And I feel like that kind of made sense in this movie because I do feel like Carmen was kind of the main character. She was the main narrator.
Definitely. She's definitely the main narrator. And I love Carmen. She's my favorite, I think.
I think so too. I love her. Actually, I love all of them, to be honest.
Yeah.
Which one are you, though? Which sister are you?
Oh, I don't know. Growing up, Lena, aka Rory Gilmore, for sure.
Yes.
How about you?
She's me, too.
Yeah. I would love to know what you guys identify as. Which sister? Please tell us.
Are you a Carmen, Tibby, Lena, or Bridget?
So this I thought was interesting. Deborah Martin Chase picked a man to direct. And she gave a really interesting quote that she really wanted a, quote, sensitive man to direct, which I think is an interesting take. I don't hate it. It's just an interesting thing to come out and say. Like, there are a lot of rom-coms and female-centered movies that are directed by men, so I actually think there's no issue with that. It just is kind of funny that she came out and said she really imagined this sensitive guy directing. And I will say this, Ken Kwapis, I don't know if that's how you say his last name, but that is the director. He gave this quote, "I really identified with each girl, odd as that sounds. A woman friend of mine said I must have been a teenage girl in a previous life." And that made me go, Okay. I get it. I get it more.
You know what? You deserve to this project. I'm in. I'm a fan of yours.
I know.
That's cute. That's really cute.
And he actually is the same guy that went on to direct He's Just Not That Into You, which I love that movie. I don't know if you've seen it.
We've seen it together, yeah.
Oh! Jenny. Sorry.
Guys, this is the second time that Megan has been like, have you seen that movie? And I'm like, yes, with you. At your house.
I'm sorry. Did we watch this one with my sister? I feel like we did. Okay. I remember.
It's a good one. I love that one. I love these girls' friendship in this movie, and it made me really happy to hear that the girls were actually inseparable during filming. They actually had a lot of scenes that weren't together because they go off and do their own thing throughout the whole movie. But whenever they did have scenes together, they would spend the night at America Ferrera's hotel.
Cute.
I know. I thought it was so cute. And the girls are still close, and they have a group chat that's been going on for 20 years.
Cute.
I think we should do a poll. Like, what do you think their group chat's name is?
Mm-hmm.
They had a reunion recently, and I think maybe they've had multiple reunions because I saw them at the Barbie premiere, I think, to support America Ferrera, and that was really cute. But then it also looks like recently they had a sleepover or something. There's like a photo of them on the couch together, and it's really sweet, and the pics are just really cute, so you guys should go look it up if you want your heart to feel full.
It makes me so happy. Okay, should we talk about the cast?
Yeah, let's jump into it. Let's talk about America Ferrera, who plays Carmen.
You guys obviously know her. She's from Ugly Betty, Superstore, Real Women Have Curves, How to Train Your Dragon. I actually didn't realize that she was in that. She plays Astrid.
I love Astrid. I didn't know that.
I know. And of course, Barbie, for which she was nominated for an Oscar last year.
I feel like we talk about her monologue in Barbie a lot. And in this movie, she had a lot of monologues or a lot of kind of solo parts where I was like, there she is.
Mm-hmm.
There's the girl from Barbie.
It's the same girl. I'm so happy that I feel like she reached a new level of recognition over the last year, obviously from Barbie. And I'm just happy. I'm just happy that she's getting that because she deserves it.
Agreed.
So she has been married to her husband, Ryan Piers Williams, since 2011. And he is the actor that played her husband in the Barbie movie.
Really?
If you guys remember, like, the kind of dorky dad that, like, would drive her around with their daughter, that's her husband in real life. Isn't that cute?
How did we miss that in our episode on the Barbie movie? That's so cute. I love that.
And I read that they met at USC when he cast her in his first short films. They were both in film school together.
Cute.
And they have 2 kids together, Sebastian and Lucia.
That makes me so happy. I can picture him perfectly because I just rewatched Barbie last week. Love that. And then we have Blake Lively, who plays Bridget.
You guys know Blake from Gossip Girl, The Age of Adeline, The Shallows, A Simple Favor, and so many more things.
She was such an it girl of this time, and I always kind of forget that. She's still an it girl to me, but rewatching this movie, it just all flooded back, and I was like, oh, she is the coolest.
I know.
Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants was actually her first major acting role, and she was only 16 when they filmed this.
Wow.
That made her the youngest of the cast, even though in the movie they say Bridget is the oldest. So she was actually much younger than the others because Alexis Bledel was 22, America Ferrera was 19, and Amber Tamblyn was 20.
That's actually a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about this a lot, but especially at that age, the difference between 16 and 22, and for them to act like best friends, that would be intimidating maybe, especially on your first job.
And for them to all actually end up close and being friends.
Is that much cooler? So she is married to Ryan Reynolds. They got married in 2012, and they have 4 kids. I believe they're all girls. And their names are James, Inez, and Betty, which you guys may recognize from various Taylor Swift songs. And nobody knows the name of their youngest baby, which I think is kind of fun. They like do a good job of keeping them a secret, usually until they come out in a Taylor Swift song, which is kind of funny.
I love when celebrities keep their kids private.
Mm-hmm. And they do a really good job of never posting photos of their kids. There's like never even really paparazzi photos of their kids.
I actually recently saw a TikTok where someone was at the Eras tour and they saw Blake and Ryan and their kids in the crowd and videoed them and put it on TikTok. And the comments were like, hey, they do a really good job protecting the identity of their kids, so you should probably blur their faces.
Wow.
And I just loved that the comments were like that. That was really cool.
Shout out TikTok commenters for the first time ever.
People are good sometimes.
Yeah.
On the internet.
So Blake comes from a pretty famous family. You guys probably know several of her siblings, but I believe the most famous of them is Robin Lively. She is from Teen Witch, Letters to God, and a bunch of other things. She has very iconic red curly hair. If you guys look her up, you might recognize her. And she is married to Bart Johnson, who is the actor that plays Zac Efron's dad in High School Musical.
Coach Bolton.
Yes, the coach, yeah.
Somebody else famous also auditioned for Bridget, and that was Olivia Wilde, which I thought was kind of interesting.
I could see that. I could actually totally see that. It's giving, like, you know when she first comes on House, and she's like the cool, hot, young, new resident girl?
I totally forgot she was in House.
I think that's where she became famous, I think. And that is the same energy of like cool girl that doesn't care as kind of Bridget, so I could see that.
Interesting. Should we talk about Amber Tamblyn, who plays Tibby?
Yes. So she is in The Ring, Why the Last Man, 2.5 Men, and many more things, just like all these girls went on to do a lot. She actually got her start on General Hospital at age 11, so very young. She is married to David Cross, the comedian. You guys probably know him from Arrested Development. I actually saw his stand-up in Denver earlier this year, and he was actually very funny. And they have a daughter named Marlo.
I'm so jealous that you went. I bet that he was funny. I don't think I've ever actually seen his stand-up, but I bet it's really good. I love him in She's the Man.
Oh, yeah. We just talked about him. He's the principal, right?
Mm-hmm. This is kind of funny, but David Cross and Ryan Reynolds, a.k.a. Blake Lively's husband, who we were talking about earlier, are friends. So I think it's cool that the girls are friends and then their husbands are friends, too.
And I believe they all live in New York, so I could see that.
Do you think they hang out?
Maybe.
I hope so.
I hope so, too. They have daughters. Yeah, David Cross's stand-up, and if you guys don't know him, you do. Just Google his name, you'll recognize him immediately. His whole stand-up was about being a dad, so it was actually pretty cute because he was talking about, I'm pretty sure he lives in Brooklyn, and he was like talking about all the other Brooklyn parents and like going to the park with his kid and like being an older dad. It was just it was funny. So if you like the like parent jokes, which I do, I love when comedians talk about like their spouses or their kids, you guys would like it.
I'm gonna look that up. That sounds awesome.
She is also an author of a lot of things. I didn't know this, but she's published several poetry books, a book of memoir essays, another full memoir, and at least one novel. And she also co-founded a nonprofit called the Right Now Poetry Society. Right is spelled W-R-I-T-E.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know this, but I love a good celebrity memoir, and I would love to read hers because I know nothing about her.
Yeah.
Cool. This blew my mind. Hilary Duff was reportedly considered for the role of Tibby. And I'm just picturing Hilary Duff. She was like the all-American, sweet girl. And to be in this edgy role as Tibby, I can see why she went for it because she probably wanted to break out of her, what do you call it?
Like Disney good girl shell.
Exactly.
Which is kind of hilarious to be like, I'm going to be the rebel in Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants to break out of my shell. But Tibby was very alt at this time, I feel like. So I could see that. I cannot see her playing Tibby, though, at all. Like, maybe Bridget. Maybe. Is like the only one. Maybe Lena. Because, like, I could see Lena kind of giving Lizzie McGuire, like, shy awkwardness.
Mm-hmm.
Not Tibby.
No. Amber was perfect for Tibby, let's be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that was funny.
Okay, and then we have Alexis Bledel, who plays Lena. You guys know her from Gilmore Girls, obviously. The Handmaid's Tale, Tuck Everlasting, Postgrad, and so many things. And I never really knew a lot about her personal life, did you?
I remember a little bit, but remind me.
She was married to somebody named Vincent Carthizer, I believe is how you say his last name. He is an actor from Mad Men, and they were married from 2014 to 2022, and they had a son in 2015.
Oh, I didn't know they split up.
Mm-hmm. I read that they actually met on the set of Mad Men when Alexis was playing Vincent's character's mistress.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. Which I don't remember that. I did not realize that she was in Mad Men.
I didn't remember that either.
And based on what I was reading, it seemed like they secretly got married and they kept their relationship very under wraps. Like a lot of their castmates later came out and were like, yeah, we figured something was going on, but we like didn't really know. And the earliest news I can even find about them having a son is from 2020, and he was born in 2015.
I want to say I remember finding out that she had a kid way after she had had him.
That's what it seems like, and I couldn't find his name anywhere.
How did she pull that off?
I don't know. She just keeps her private life very quiet. Although I feel like, was 2020 when Handmaid's Tale came out?
I think it was before that.
Okay.
I think it was like 2017, maybe 2016.
Okay, never mind. I was going to say if she like took a long break and then came back and then everything's kind of started coming to the surface maybe, but it's very impressive.
I think she was still working. She must have still been working like right after. If it was 2015, then she gave birth before Handmaid's Tale.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy to keep a baby a secret for 5 years from the paparazzi.
While you're filming Handmaid's Tale too.
Good on her.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I love those girls, and I feel like they're all dear to my heart because of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes me happy that they're all friends.
I love that they're friends, and I feel like they all have decent recognition, which I kind of love. I feel like when we talk about nostalgic movies especially, there's always like a couple of cast members that ended up going into more normal careers or went back to school or did like little projects, but all of them have done a lot, which is really cool to see.
I love that. Should we get into the movie?
Let's do it. So when the movie opens, we see a pair of jeans being made. You guys will remember this. It's like an up-close shot at the denim and like the stitching in the denim. And Carmen, again played by America Ferrera, has a voiceover during this part where she says, "I'd like to think that fate had a hand in what happened that summer, that it was the pants' destiny to find us. Where they came from and why they chose us, well, that will always be a mystery, but perhaps that was part of their miracle, that they sensed in that moment how much we needed them."
Then we see the 4 girls walking on the street, and Carmen's voiceover tells us that they've been friends since before they were born, when their moms met at a prenatal aerobics class, and they were all born within a week of each other. Although I don't think we hear about their birthdays in this.
That was one of my immediate thoughts. I was like, okay, my friend group in middle school, there were 4 of us that had birthdays the same week, and it was always
Really?
a topic of conversation. Yes, because it was like, okay, 2 of us are going to do our birthday parties this weekend, and then the other 2 are going to do them the next weekend, and then we would have to coordinate. And like for there to be no conversation about like, we're all turning this age this year. It's just kind of crazy.
I want to say in the book, it matters because I think their birthdays are all in the summertime.
Interesting. Then we get this montage of their childhood together, and we learn that Bridget was born first, and she liked to take charge, which is funny now knowing that Blake Lively was much younger than the other girls.
Yeah.
We see this scene of their ballet recital, and there are some boys like making fun of the girls or something, and Bridget jumps off the stage to like beat a guy up because he makes fun of Lena for falling.
Yeah. Then we see Carmen's dad leaving the house in the rain, and Carmen calls Lena and says she doesn't think he's coming back this time. And Lena says she'll stay on the phone with her until she falls asleep.
Then we see Tibby making a film about how she thinks her parents are out of their minds for having a new baby. And she like directs all the girls to back her up. And they're like, yeah, it's crazy. So we get this very early sense of Tibby's like filmmaking interest.
And then when the girls are a little bit older, now they're actually played by themselves, we see them at Bridget's mom's funeral, and we learn that her mom committed suicide. And this is an interesting fact. Blake Lively's dad plays her dad in the movie.
Oh, I love that. That's really cool.
I had no idea.
I'm gonna have to go back and look at him, see if they look a lot alike. This was very tragic, though. I did not remember that this was part of the movie.
I didn't remember either.
There are a lot of really adult themes in this, and I was reading, I don't think it was reviews, but I read a couple articles about this movie that was sort of pondering why it did so well, other than the fact that obviously the book was a big success. And one of the big things that I took away was there were a lot of these really difficult themes that are not usually addressed in this sort of, not necessarily young adult, but just like female-centric movie, like losing your virginity in it, not going the way that you wanted, or like losing a parent, or, you know, divorce, or like a parent leaving. Like there's a lot of these just like darker themes that were not in this type of movie at the time.
I really like it when a movie gives credit to teenagers for the things they go through and the things that they can handle in a movie, and doesn't just try to keep everything PG for them. Because like in this movie, I feel like that's why we love it so much, is because we can like relate to certain characters, or like we learn something from the things that they go through, and it's just really special. I really like it.
Agree. We get another voiceover from Carmen that says, "Together, it was as if we formed one single complete person. Wild, unstoppable Bridget, shy and beautiful Lena, Tibby the rebel, and me, Carmen the writer."
Though I don't feel like we see her write at all.
No, I thought
Except
the
letters.
same thing. When she said that, I was like, that's an interesting description that I forgot. The other ones are spot on.
That's not how I would describe you in this movie, Carmen.
This is the author coming through.
Yeah.
Being like, it's me, Carmen, actually Anne, the writer.
You're so right. Maybe we see more of it in the book, but yeah, not in this movie. The girls have never been apart before, but for the first time they're going to be. And so now we're in the present day, and they're going to a vintage store together looking for clothes for their upcoming trips, except for Tibby, who's staying at home and working at Wallman's this summer, and she's not happy about it. Carmen is going to South Carolina, and Lena, Alexis Bledel, is going to Greece, and Bridget, Blake Lively, is going to an all-girls soccer camp.
At the vintage store, Carmen makes Tibby try on a pair of jeans, and the girls try to get her to buy them because of how great they look, and Tibby is just like, she doesn't like all the fuss about her. You know, all the girls are like, ooh, you look great, buy the jeans. And that's like the opposite of Tibby's personality. So she shoves the jeans at Lena and says, you try them on then. And Lena says that she doesn't wear jeans. And the girls tell her that she doesn't like to wear anything that shows off her figure. And then when she tries them on, they also look great on her. And then the same thing happens, sort of, where everyone's like, ooh, Lena's got a body, you know? And so then Lena says, if you love jeans so much, why don't you try them on? And then hands them to Bridget. And Bridget says they're not going to work for her because she's 3 inches taller than Lena, but they do.
Then the girls convince Carmen to try them on next. And Carmen's like, oh, come on. You think a pair of jeans that fits all 3 of you is going to fit all of this? But she tries them on, and they're perfect for her too. And the girls are all stunned. So these jeans fit 4 very different body types.
Although I did have the thought watching this that, like, not all of their body types are that different. Like,
no.
I get what they were trying to do, and they definitely picked the right actors. So, like, there is not really anything I would change. But I was looking at it going, this would be a lot more powerful if there were actually significantly different body types involved. And I do agree that Carmen has a different body type than the other girls. And obviously, Blake Lively's a little bit taller. And like, no, you probably would not all wear the same size jeans. I get that. But the differences are slight, you know?
Also, were stretchy jeans not a thing back then?
They are stretchy too. You can tell when they put them on.
Because I'm thinking of like, I don't know, jeggings. You know?
Right.
I feel like they could fit a lot of different body types.
Right. Yeah, I don't fault it, but it just made me go, this would be more impactful if the girls had very different body types, and most of them don't.
But also, I'm just remembering when I was younger and my friends and I would always do stuff like we would have a notebook that we'd write inside jokes in, or we would like try stuff like Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants where we like passed along something. And so I just think, yeah, high school girls would be like, these pants are magic. Let's trade them.
Totally. Oh, totally.
We'll all share them.
So then later that night, the girls are in this like giggle fit, like running down the street. And we see them break into the studio where their moms took prenatal aerobics when they were all pregnant with them. And they light candles. And Carmen says that tonight, on the eve of their separation, magic has been brought to them in the form of a pair of pants. And she proposes that this summer the pants travel equally among them to link them while they're apart. They're the Sisterhood of the Pantalones. And because every sisterhood needs rules, they come up with some.
We're going to read the rules from the book because the conversation is a little more chaotic and harder to follow. But rule number 1, you must never wash the pants. Rule number 2, you must never double cuff the pants. It's tacky. There will never be a time when this will not be tacky. Rule number 3, you must never say the word fat while wearing the pants. You must also never think to yourself, I am fat, while wearing the pants. 4, you must never let a boy take off the pants, although you may take them off yourself in his presence. Rule 5, you must not pick your nose while wearing the pants. You may, however, scratch casually at your nostril while really kind of picking. I think that one was Tibby's.
I think so too. Rule 6, upon our reunion, you must follow the proper procedure for documenting your time in the pants. On the left leg of the pants, write the most exciting place you have been while wearing the pants. On the right leg of the pants, write the most important thing that happened to you while wearing the pants. For example, quote, I hooked up with my second cousin Ivan while wearing the traveling pants.
My mom would not have let me wear jeans that said that on them.
Oh, for sure. Nor would I want to wear them.
No. Your second cousin? Goodbye.
Or if Bridget was like, made out with my soccer coach, I'm not wearing those pants to school. No.
No.
Rule 7, you must write to your sisters throughout the summer, no matter how much fun you're having without them. Rule 8. You must pass the pants along to your sisters according to the specifications set down by the Sisterhood. Failure to comply will result in a severe spanking upon our reunion. It's intense. Rule 9. You must not wear the pants with a tucked-in shirt and a belt. See rule number 2. Rule 10. Remember, pants equal love. Love your pals. Love yourself.
This is so cute. I love it.
It's giving such teenage girl.
I wanted so badly to have friends who would pass along something like this. Like, I think I was the friend, the type A friend who would be like, we're doing this and we're going to pass along this notebook.
And here's the rules.
And then we would do it for like one day, or they'd be like, okay, Jenny. And then they would never do it. And I'd be sad.
I would do it with you.
Thank you. I know you would, because you started a podcast with me. We cut to Lena in Santorini, Greece, and she's riding a donkey with her grandfather, who she calls Papu. She's struggling, and she apologizes to him that her Greek isn't very good. And then she falls off the donkey, and tons of family that she doesn't know come to greet her. And she's just really uncomfortable and awkward, you can tell. And then her grandmother, her Yaya, gives her a huge hug and shows her to her room. And Lena opens up her suitcase, and she looks at the pants, because she's the first one who gets them.
I feel like Lena's experience is so relatable, because I feel like everyone has traveled to see family that they don't see that often, and it's kind of awkward.
Mm-hmm.
And this just was giving that to me. Like when the grandma's all over her and you can tell Lena's like, hey, like I definitely have not seen you in a decade.
Yeah.
I just thought it was cute.
Me too. And her Papu isn't talking to her, so she's like trying to make conversation, but she's like, I don't know if he understands me, and it's just awkward for her.
Mm-hmm. Then we see Bridget on a bus with a bunch of girls on their way to soccer camp in Mexico. And then at the camp, all the girls are waiting in a line to be assigned to their teams. And Bridget eyes this cute guy, who's the only guy there, and she's asking the other girls who he is. And the girl next to her says, don't even think about it. It's against the rules to have flings with coaches. We can tell immediately Bridget does not care that this is against the rules. And when she gets assigned her group, she runs across the field and then takes her hat off to like let her hair flip right in front of this guy, and then like turns to go to where she's actually supposed to go because she's just trying to get his attention.
And she does.
Mm-hmm.
Carmen's dad picks her up from the train station, and she's so excited to show him her straight A's and play tennis with him and cook for him this summer. And she says she hasn't spent more than 4 straight days with him since she was 10. And then he says he has a surprise for her, which I feel like is never good in a movie like this.
Mm-mm.
He moved into a new house in a development away from the city with a new woman named Lydia and her teenagers, Krista and Paul. Why did he think this was a good surprise?
Disaster. Like, she thinks that she's coming to stay in some cool apartment in downtown Charleston, and they're going to have this like quality time all summer, and it's going to be like the summer of them. And her mom, by the way, has like been warning her that this like might not be great, or like to lower her expectations, I guess, about her dad. You know, before she leaves, her mom is like, you know, he might be busy. Her mom does not know all of this. Obviously, she just like doesn't have a great opinion of the dad. And it's just heartbreaking to then see Carmen learn all of this as she's meeting his new family. It's just, I can't believe he let this happen.
Horrific. Such a terrible idea. When Carmen meets them, she learns that her dad is marrying Lydia at the end of the summer. Tragic.
Tragic.
You're right. Maybe I hate the dad.
I know. But I don't hate him.
No.
But he's a bad communicator.
He's a doofus.
Well, but also he left her. I had a hard time rewatching this as an adult, reconciling baby little girl Carmen, who's like on the phone with Tibby saying like, my dad's leaving and he's not going to come back this time. And then she has barely seen him since then, with like dad that actually seems like a pretty good dad this summer.
To everyone who's not her.
Right.
Like, he has chosen not to be a part of her life and to only see her for, what, like twice a year or something?
Mm-hmm.
For less than 4 days at a time. I say that as someone who grew up with a dad who lived across the country from me.
True.
And I only saw him 2 times a year, but it was for longer than 4 days, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
It was for a long time, and we're very close.
It can be done.
It can be done.
Yeah. It was hard to see. At Wallman's, Tibby is putting price tags on pads, and her boss tells her that employee headsets are supposed to be worn at all times. And then when he like turns around, she puts a price sticker on her forehead. You guys will remember this. It's like the little sticky gun. She's just basically just like, well, fuck me, and puts it on her forehead.
An icon.
Yeah.
Truly. I always remember that part.
And then she hears this loud clatter from the aisle next to her, and she like walks over and sees a girl passed out on the floor who's peed herself. Tibby obviously calls for help. And then the girl, played by Jenna Boyd, gets wheeled away on a stretcher, and she's like waking up as they're bringing her out to the ambulance. And she looks at Tibby and says, "You got a price sticker on your forehead." And then she gets loaded away. This is Bailey.
Then back in Greece, Lena is wearing the pants, and she's by the water sketching a boat, and she's noticing all of these couples, and she's kind of self-conscious. And then she notices a guy on a boat, and she stretches to try to get a closer look. And then her chair tips over and she falls into the water, and it's super embarrassing. But what's worse is her jeans get caught on something down below, and she can't swim to the surface, which is terrifying. And then someone comes to help free her leg, and they surface together. And it's the guy from the boat that she was trying to sneak a peek at. And this is Costas, played by Michael Rady, and he speaks to her in Greek, and she apologizes and says she doesn't speak Greek very well. And then he says in English, "Well, we'll have to work on that, won't we?"
This is an adult man.
Is he?
I don't know. He says he's in college, and I believe him. But I was watching this going, if this dude pulled me out of the water when I was 16, I would say 35. Right? Like,
he looks older.
He looks so adult. Yeah.
Okay, wait. You just made me realize, I think this whole movie, I was thinking the girls were done with high school. They're not. And this man is in college. That is kind of weird.
Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Never thought of that before, but you ruined it for me, Megan.
Sorry. So sorry. Then on his grandfather's boat, Costas lends her this dry t-shirt to wear like a dress. And you can tell she's very uncomfortable because we learned earlier that she does not like to show her body in any way. Like, she is a very conservative dresser. So she's like pulling this t-shirt down to like try to cover her butt better. And then we find out that Costas goes to university in Athens, but he helps out on his grandfather's boat in the summer, which is why he's in Santorini. Then Costas has Lena help him release this small fish that he caught. And they have this like cute moment where she's scared to touch it, but then they kind of touch hands and she does it. But then Lena like freaks out and says that she has to go. But then Costas invites her to dance on Saturday night, and she does the same thing. She like freaks out and she's like, I can't, and runs away.
Something I found funny is that Michael Rady, who plays Costas, is originally from Philadelphia, not Greece.
No.
And he only had 4 days to learn a Greek accent.
That is shocking, actually. Okay, if any of this is giving the Lizzie McGuire movie with Paolo. If any of our listeners are Greek or have family that are Greek, is his accent good? Let us know.
Yeah, I would love to know. He learned that in 4 days.
It was great to me.
Could have fooled me, honestly. And then Natasha Bedingfield's song Unwritten is playing. I felt like that was important to note. And the soccer girls are running on the beach, and the cute coach is leading the pack, and he's telling them to pick up the pace. I feel like this scene is iconic too. Bridget's all the way in the back, and then she starts running faster, and she kind of pushes her way to the front of the pack to run with him. And she introduces herself to him, and he says his name is Eric. And she says she knows and heard he goes to Columbia. And then she asks, "What have you heard about me?" And he says he heard her high school won nationals, and she's like, "MVP, I play forward." And he says, "So I've noticed." And then she says she's 17, even though she's only 15. I looked it up, and she wouldn't have had her birthday yet. So she's 15 in this moment.
And she's the oldest, so they're all 15.
Yes, with college boys. Stop it. Stop it. And then she's like, "I'll race ya." And they race way ahead of everyone else and collapse on the beach together. And they kind of bond over how it feels like nothing can touch you when you're running.
I cannot relate to that.
You are a runner girl now.
I know, and I feel like I'm dying every time. I do not feel like nothing can touch me. I feel like I'm going down. So then back at Carmen's dad's house, the family is eating together, and Carmen feels like a fish out of water. You can tell she just feels like she does not belong with his new family. And her dad says grace, which you can tell she's never heard him say before. And we actually hear her make a comment later to her mom that he would never go to church with them, but he's like here saying grace every night with his new family. And then when the phone rings during dinner, Carmen gets up to answer it, which I think is kind of weird because it's not her house, but she's like insistent on getting up to answer their house phone. And Lydia, the mom of this family, tells her they don't answer the phone during dinner, But then the family starts reminiscing on how Carmen's dad and Lydia met, because the one time that she did answer the phone during dinner, it was because Carmen's dad accidentally called their house. And you can tell that this family, like, has bonded a lot with her dad. I think without Carmen there, it actually probably would seem really cute, but you can tell that Carmen is just seeing that they're getting a totally different experience of her dad than she got, which is sad. So then Carmen calls her mom after dinner and complains that the toilet water is blue and her dad is doing all the things that he used to hate. And then her mom sort of comforts her and is like, yeah, you're right. It's not right that he didn't tell you all of this before you got there. And then she offers to get on a plane to get her. And Carmen tells her no. And you can tell she's determined to make the summer fun anyway.
Then Lena writes a letter to Tibby that they were wrong about the pants because the one time she wore them, she almost drowned and then got plucked onto a fishing boat by a guy who made her touch a live fish. Then she mails the pants to Tibby. Back at her grandparents' house, Yaya asks if the big shirt she found in the laundry is Lena's, and Lena says someone lent it to her. And Yaya pries, and Lena tells her it belongs to Costas Dunas. And Yaya originally was kind of like, ooh, whose shirt is this? Like, she was kind of all for it, but as soon as she hears his last name, she gets upset and tells her she must never speak to a Dunas because they are liars, and her grandfather would die if he knew about this. And she makes Lena swear to never see Costas again.
Then we see Tibby working on a documentary she's filming about her life at Wallman's, when Bailey, who is the girl that fainted, shows up at her door with a package that was delivered to her house by mistake. What a crazy coincidence that they live on the same street and get each other's mail.
The pants are magic.
Mm-hmm. Tibby obviously recognizes her and gives her back her wallet that she left at Wallman's when she fainted. Bailey immediately accuses her of stealing money from her wallet. They immediately have this rapport where they just give each other crap all the time. And the two have this hilarious argument. And then Tibby's baby sister wakes up and cries. And we learn that she's home babysitting. Bailey, instead of leaving when Tibby is, all hands on deck with this baby, becomes very interested in Tibby's video equipment and documentary, which Tibby tells her is an ode to the lives of quiet desperation, human existence at its lamest.
I'm gonna be honest, I was a Lena when I was a teenager, but I so desperately wanted to be a Tibby.
Yeah.
There was a dark part of me that really related to her.
I know, me too. And Bailey immediately is just in for this, and she asks to be Tibby's assistant. And then Tibby's mom gets home and asks who her friend is, and Tibby's like, she's not my friend. So it's just funny. Their dynamic is funny immediately.
Mm-hmm. Carmen's dad tells her that they should go play tennis together in the morning, and she is so excited because remember, she really has been waiting to play tennis with her dad and get some one-on-one time with him. And then Lydia asks if they'll stop by her son Paul's game on the way, and Carmen's dad says Paul is an unbelievable soccer player. So they're going to have a little detour first before they go play tennis.
Back at soccer camp, Bridget purposely hits the soccer ball with her head to direct it over to Eric, just so that she can go over there and flirt with him. And he says, "You're awfully sure of yourself, huh?" And she says, "When I know what I want." Which, the confidence that she has astounds me, even now.
At 15.
This. Yeah. So then during a scrimmage, she doesn't pass the ball to anyone. And even though she scores, she gets pulled out of the scrimmage for not, passing or, being a good teammate. And Bridget obviously gets mad for getting pulled from the game, but then decides to pour water on herself in front of Eric to get his attention again.
She's obsessed. She's going for it.
Mm-hmm.
Back to Carmen. She and her dad are at Paul's soccer game, and you can tell that they've been there for a really long time because Carmen is so bored, and it looks like they ended up staying for the whole game. Lydia then shows up at the game and tells Carmen's dad that the hotel where they're holding their wedding has flooded and repairs won't be done for months, so they won't be able to have their wedding there. And Carmen's dad takes Lydia home and asks Paul to play tennis with Carmen instead. Which is so annoying because it's Carmen doesn't want to play tennis just to play tennis. She wants to play tennis with you.
Mm-hmm.
And so Carmen angrily plays tennis with Paul and she accidentally hits him in the forehead. They're going back and forth and she's going so hard and then she pops him right in the forehead with the ball.
This made me think it would be probably such a big adjustment. I mean, this is an understatement, obvious understatement. It would be such a big adjustment to be part of a blended family as a teenager and suddenly have new teenage siblings.
I think it would be weird because I always struggled to talk to other teenagers that I didn't know.
Right.
It was kind of awkward.
And for her to then get surprised put in this house with two teenagers that are her age, that are not anything like her, to then get stuck one-on-one hanging out with this guy, I would be so mad at my dad.
And I think she makes a comment like, Paul doesn't talk. So she's like, what are we going to do?
Yeah. Lena's back at the dock and she pulls in Costas's boat and she's struggling with it until he comes up behind her and starts pulling the rope with her, but she doesn't notice at first. This is iconic, you guys will remember. And when she realizes that he's behind her, she gets embarrassed and like immediately hands him back his shirt. And he asks her to go out on the boat with him and she says she can't. And he says, they told you, didn't they? And she says, you knew our grandparents hated each other. You knew my name. And he says the arguments of old men about fish and money aren't about them. But Lena says it matters to her.
They're like a modern day Romeo and Juliet.
Totally.
Then we're back to Tibby, and she is wearing the jeans to work, even though they're against dress code. And when Tibby goes out behind Wallman's, she finds Bailey with all of her video equipment. She's like, what are you doing with that? And Bailey's like, oh, your mom gave it to me. I told her I was your assistant. Which I love. And Tibby's like, you seem like a sweet kid. No, you seem like a pain in the ass. But look, I have my own friends, and even though they left me here to rot this summer, I am not looking for any new ones. And Bailey's like, well, I'm not either. I just want to learn about filmmaking. And she says she found a good subject for an interview and takes Tibby to Brian McBrien, the king of the arcade game Dragon's Lair. And Tibby tells her to set up the video equipment, and the two interview Brian. And you can see they kind of have this good working relationship. Like, Tibby actually is interested in interviewing this guy, and so she's kind of like, okay, well, you can come.
Mm-hmm.
And the girls end up getting really into watching him play the game, and they decide to come back tomorrow to finish their interview.
And then we're back to Carmen, who goes into the kitchen speaking Spanish to Lydia and Krista, who don't understand her. And when her dad says that no one in the house understands Spanish, she tells Lydia and Krista that her parents used to speak Spanish to each other all the time. So that's not true. And then Lydia tells Carmen that they decided to have the wedding in the backyard, which bursts Carmen's bubble. And she asks where Paul is, and everyone gets really awkward and weird and say that he's at an appointment, and then it's just like silent in the kitchen. And Carmen obviously is worried that he's like at the hospital because she hit him in the head with a tennis ball. But immediately they're like, no, it's not that. Then Carmen follows her dad outside and asks where Paul really is. And he tells her that Paul is visiting his dad in Atlanta. We find out that Paul and Krista's dad is an alcoholic and lives in a facility. And once a month, Paul takes a bus to visit him. Krista, his sister, refuses to see him. And Lydia tries not to upset Krista by talking about it.
Then at the soccer camp, all of the girls are getting packages from their family. And then Bridget gets this letter from her dad. And it's very cold. And it's 2 sentences. And it's typed instead of handwritten. Then Bridget kind of ignores this and overhears that Eric and the other coaches are going to the cantina on their day off. And she thinks he wants her to go because he said it right in front of her. And the other soccer girls look at her like she's Delulu.
Because she is Delulu in this moment.
The whole time, honestly.
Yeah. I love her for it, but she's trying hard. Then we see Bailey and Tibby go through the day's footage, and Bailey asks her about the jeans that she's sharing with her friends, and she learns that they magically fit all of them. Bailey obviously wonders what they look like on her, but then Tibby snaps at her and says that she can do whatever she wants if she's quiet. But then Tibby gets interrupted by her mom asking for help with the baby. And while she's helping, Bailey comes out wearing the jeans, which are huge on her, and she's very disappointed, which is very cute. And then she sits down to film herself while Tibby's out of the room, but we don't get to see what she says.
That part always makes me so sad, just her trying on the pants. And I don't know why, but as a kid, I really thought they would fit her too.
I know.
Even though she's much younger. Then Tibby mails the jeans to Carmen, and she writes that nothing of consequence happened while she was wearing the pants. She tells Carmen about the wise-ass kid who's glued to her hip now.
Then we're back with Carmen. Lydia wakes her up in the morning and asks if the housekeeper, Maria, can grab her sheets. And she says she tried to tell Maria to get them later, but she doesn't understand English. And you can tell Carmen is immediately so put off by the fact that Lydia has a housekeeper, the fact that she's like talking about how the housekeeper doesn't understand her because she speaks Spanish, because Carmen had actually said earlier in the movie that she's Puerto Rican. So you can tell she like identifies with Maria and like is annoyed that Lydia is waking her up to like make Maria wash her sheets. And so Carmen tells Lydia that she can wash her own sheets. I think she says, people wash their own sheets all the time. It's like very sassy.
At the fish market in Santorini, Costas runs into Lena and says, no one sits near a smelly fish market unless they're waiting for someone. So he's kind of on to her. He's really impressed by her art, and we learn that his parents died in a car accident when he was 12, and he now lives with his grandfather. He tells her that she should finish drawing the church that she was drawing before he showed up, but she says that she should go. And he asks if she's really afraid of her grandparents finding out or if she's afraid of something else. And she says, "You don't even know me." And he says, "I'm trying to. Can't you see that?" And leaves. Then Lena writes to Carmen that he's right. She is afraid, and she's putting a wall up with Costas. She says she doesn't have the kind of faith that he has, and says, "It makes me so sad that people like Costas and Bridget, who have lost everything, can still be open to love, while I, who have lost nothing, cannot." And then she cries by herself at the sea, and she strips down to her bra and underwear to swim. Then Costas finds her and jumps in after her.
Cute. I love this part.
Yeah, minus their age difference. I do like this part too. You've ruined it for me a little bit. But I do remember like this being an iconic part as well. This whole movie, I remember every scene. They're just glued in my brain.
I know. Then the next day, Tibby looks for Bailey behind Wallman's, but she isn't there. So she goes to her house and nobody answers. And while Tibby is waiting on the porch, a neighbor tells Tibby that Bailey is at the doctor's. The neighbor says that they aren't sure why, because Bailey stopped treatment. And obviously, Tibby immediately asks, "Treatment?" And the neighbor tells Tibby that Bailey has leukemia and that they found it a couple of years ago.
I remember this being a big plot twist.
Yep.
Carmen passes by Krista's bedroom, where her friend asks, "Is that her?" And then the girls giggle. And then Carmen sees the pants package waiting on her bed, and she hugs it because she has had no good luck so far. So she hopes the pants can bring her some. Then at soccer camp, Bridget and her friends sneak off to the cantina, and Bridget comes up to Eric, and he's like, "You shouldn't be here." And she says, "I'm not drinking, but if you don't dance with me, I might have to start." The confidence of this girl is insane. Maybe if I looked like Blake Lively, I would feel the same way. She starts dancing on him and pulls him to the dance floor, and then she gets really into their dance, and he says, "I can't do this. I'm sorry."
Good for him in this moment. He does the right thing this time.
This one moment. Because she is, in his mind, still 17.
True.
But it's a lot worse when you find out she's 15.
Yeah. So then we see Costas teaching Lena how to ride a Vespa, and we see them fishing together, and then we see Lena sketching him while he poses for her. So you can tell she's like hit a real turning point, which is really cute. And back at Wallman's, Tibby interviews her coworker Birdie for her documentary, but you can tell Tibby is bored and isn't really listening. She's just kind of going through the motions. But then Bailey shows up out of nowhere with her equipment, as if everything is normal, like as if she didn't miss anything. And she immediately starts asking Birdie questions. And we can tell that Bailey is really good at talking to people, and she immediately connects with Birdie in a way that Tibby wasn't. And then when Birdie leaves to get back to work, Bailey apologizes to Tibby for butting in because she knows that she hates when she does that. And Tibby is immediately like, "It's okay, you did a good job." But she can't make eye contact with Bailey, and Bailey immediately catches on and asks who told her about the leukemia. Tibby asks her if she wants to do another interview, and Bailey says, "Yeah, I would like to come with you, but are you just asking because you feel sorry for me?" Tibby says, "I don't know, maybe." And Bailey says, "Okay." And then they go off and do the interview together.
I kind of love this part because I think Tibby is one of the only people who is honest with her. And so for her to be like, "I don't know, maybe I'm just asking you because I feel sorry for you." And Bailey accepts that because she's like, "Oh, like she's being real with me. I like that." At least that's the vibe I got from it.
I think you're right. I also think something that I think we probably all love about all the girls in this movie is they're very self-aware. Like for Lena, a couple of scenes to go, to be like, "He's right, I am scared to fall in love." And then for Tibby to be like, "I might be asking her because I feel sorry for her," is just like not something that a lot of times I think we get to do in the moment. So then to see them get to do it in the moment is cool.
I love that. Then Krista and Carmen are trying on their bridesmaids' dresses, and Krista's suits her perfectly, but Carmen comes out in this pink dress that won't zip all the way and says, "I look like a tramp." And the tailor says she thinks they're better off starting from scratch on this one. When Carmen goes to change, Lydia apologizes and says to the tailor that she had no idea Carmen's father would be so off when he guessed her size. Which I hate that she can just overhear all of this. It's horrible. Lydia wants to make sure the wedding looks uniform and asks if Carmen will look like Krista in the dress if they start from scratch. And the tailor says, We'll just fix the hem on Krista's and we'll start over on the other one. And then Carmen runs out of the fitting room after overhearing all of this and yells, Carmen. The other one's name is Carmen. And you know what, Lydia? Just forget about the dress, okay? We can just tell everybody that Carmen's Puerto Rican and it never occurred to you that she might be built differently. Or that unlike you and your daughter, she has an ass that the tailor didn't have enough bolts of material to cover. Or better yet, just tell everyone there is no Carmen. Carmen doesn't exist. And then she leaves the dress shop. An iconic moment for her, though.
Iconic.
And sad.
And sad. This scene makes me really sad.
Me too.
Then we see Bridget writing to Lena about the crush she has on Eric. And she says she doesn't care that he's 100% off limits. She's never wanted anything this much in her entire life. And then during her soccer game, she does the opposite of everything her coach told her to do, and she totally hogs the ball again. She scores a goal and poses while her teammates pretend to be her paparazzi. And then later, she finds Eric on the beach and asks what he thought of her playing today. He says he doesn't know if he's ever seen anyone with that much intensity. She says she was showing off for him. He says that she scares the hell out of him, which I think is kind of funny, because she's very intense. And then she says the school counselor she saw after her mom died called her, quote, single-minded to the point of reckless. She says she's never told anyone that before, and then says, come on, I'll race ya.
It is interesting how I think Bridget's whole storyline is her just focusing on one thing so that she doesn't have to focus on her mom not being there anymore.
Yep.
Then Carmen takes a taxi back to her dad's house because remember she ran away from the dress store. And the driver asks if she has a key because it doesn't look like anyone's home. And she says, no, they're probably out looking for me. And she sits and waits on the porch for them. But then she hears laughter coming from the house and she walks around to the back. And she sees that her dad, Lydia, Krista, and Paul are all eating dinner without her like nothing happened. And she angrily throws a rock through the window at them. And then she calls Tibby from the bus station and leaves a voicemail telling her that she's coming home. Why were they not out looking for her? What was the logic in that?
I have no idea.
I can't make any more excuses for the dad.
I have so many feelings about it. And like, we'll get to this, but this is the only story really where I'm like, this does not get fixed enough for me.
I feel like I just need more scenes. I need more context about things. I need to know why he thought it was okay that Carmen didn't show up for dinner and that he's just eating dinner anyway and not looking for her. It's just so weird.
Then we see Tibby laying on the grass with Bailey looking at the sky, and Bailey says, you know what I like most about the stars? You look at all of them up there and you just know there's got to be something more than. And Tibby says, life? And Bailey says, there has to be. And Tibby asks her if she's scared, and Bailey says she's not afraid of dying. She's more afraid of not having enough time and not finding her place in the world before she leaves it. Tears.
I'm about to cry right now.
This killed me watching it. Especially because they're crying when they're saying it. That's what kills me. Is like, with the whole Tibby Bailey thing, is like, the actors clearly and like the characters have so much emotion. Like, you just can feel it's not even their age. Like, I was going to say you can feel their age because they can't, like, say it with a straight face, you know? Like, I think in a lot of movies we get, like, a wise older person that's dying or, like, a parent that's dying that's, like, soothing the kid. And you don't get that in this one. It just is sad.
It is so sad. And I think there's something about Bailey voicing a fear that we all have. And she's saying it out loud and she's so young and it's something that we all kind of just ignore and we try not to think about on the day-to-day. But she's faced with it, and so she has to talk about it. This movie is so powerful. I love this movie. Life-changing. Everyone needs to rewatch it. Lena sneaks out of her grandparents' house to meet up with Costas on his boat, and she tells him about her friends, and she says she's kind of jealous of Tibby because Tibby knows who she is. She tells him that all her life, everybody's seen her a certain way, and she didn't. And he says, some people show off their beauty because they want the world to see it. Others try to hide their beauty because they want the world to see something else. And she says, and what do you see? He says, everything. And they kiss.
Cute. On the bus home, Carmen's voiceover reads us her letter to Bridget about how she thought that the pants would make everything better. And she says she doesn't blame them for what happened, but she hopes they bring Bridget better luck and good sense. And then back home, Carmen sits with her mom on the front porch, and her mom says that she knew this would happen, and this was why she was so afraid of her going to visit her dad. And her mom says, I don't want to tell you I told you so, but... And then Carmen says, then don't. It just sucks. You can tell Carmen just wanted this to be good so bad, and she wanted her mom to be wrong, and she wanted to, like, redeem her dad. And just the opposite happened.
Yeah. This movie is so sad.
Mm-hmm.
Bridget gets the pants and tells her soccer friends, these aren't just jeans. They make things happen. And her friends look at her like she's delusional for the millionth time.
This actually made me laugh so hard. Because I was like, she is delusional. Like, to just hear somebody say this with zero context. Bridget gives no... Because Bridget is, like, pretty cards to her chest, you know? Like, she doesn't explain a lot to her friends. She, like, is very, you know, comes off very cool and, like, she doesn't care. So the girls have no idea about the magic pants. They just see Bridget hugging jeans on her bed and are like, these pants make things happen. And I just thought it was so funny. So then Carmen is back home, and she lays on her bed and tells Tibby that she was a freak show in the land of the blondes. She complains about her time at her dad's and how all they cared about was the wedding, but then Tibby says, I'm sure they were just excited. And Carmen asks Tibby to pretend to be on her side, and Tibby says, there are worse things than your dad getting married. Then Carmen says this very iconic line, which is, why are you giving me this hypocritical lecture about treating people decently when you walk around screaming, screw the world, because that's easier than feeling something? And Tibby starts tearing up and leaves. Then back in Mexico, we see Bridget getting dressed up in the jeans and a button-down over her bathing suit, and she walks past Eric's cabin. She goes and sits down on the beach and waits for him to follow her, and he comes out to meet her, and they immediately start making out.
Back in Greece, Lena's family all watch her as she acts super distracted and dreamy, and Yaya says she's getting too much sun. Then Lena goes out to meet Kostas, and they ride away on his Vespa to a party. And she dances with him, and she's wearing a dress that she never would have worn before. His classes start on Monday, and he has to leave for Athens. He tells her he loves her, but Papu and Yaya and more family members charge into the party, and Yaya yells at Kostas in Greek. She pushes him and snatches Lena away, and Papu is silent the whole time, but spits on him. And then back at home, Yaya dunks Lena's head in water and says, he makes you drunk. And Lena's like, it was nothing, we were just dancing. Then Yaya finds Lena's sketchbook and sees some shirtless drawings of Kostas that she did and says, you call that nothing? And Lena apologizes, and then Yaya tells her that family is the most precious gift in this life, and to turn your back on them is when you truly have nothing. Ouch.
And then we go back to Bridget, and we see her walk back to her cabin and get back in bed. And the next morning, she writes to Lena saying, it happened just how I always imagined it would, so why do I feel this way? How can something that's supposed to make you feel so complete end up leaving you so empty? And she says that she really wishes she could talk to her mom. To be clear, she lost her virginity to the coach. If that was not obvious.
Tibby waits for Bailey outside of Wallman's, and then her mom drives up. And Tibby's like, I told you I can't babysit today. I have an interview with Bailey. And then her mom tells her that Bailey's in the hospital and isn't doing well. And she offers to drive her to the hospital, but Tibby says, that's okay. I'll go there if I have time.
Later, we see Carmen go into Tibby's room while she's editing footage, and she apologizes and realizes that she's really mad at her dad, not at Tibby. She was just taking it out on her. And Tibby opens up to Carmen about Bailey, and Tibby rants about how Bailey jumps into the interviews. And Carmen asks if Bailey is going to be okay, and Tibby says she doesn't know.
Lena gets a package from Mexico, and it's the pants, but the letter from Bridget falls under her bed and she doesn't see it. Now wearing the pants, Lena approaches her Papu, who has not said a word the entire movie, and she tells him that he can pretend not to understand her, but she knows he does. She tells him everyone always tells her she takes after her Yaya's looks, but what people don't see is the part of her that's just like him, quiet and stubborn and afraid of showing too much. She says she met someone who changed everything and showed her it's okay to take a chance. Yaya tries to interrupt and get her to stop, but Papu shushes Yaya, and then Lena says, you had that same moment when you met Yaya and you risked everything for it. That was your chance, and I'm asking now to have mine. And he looks at her for a really long time, and then he says, go.
Cute.
Yay, Papu.
Yay. So then Lena drives a Vespa by herself to where Costa's boat is taking off for Athens, and she pushes through the crowd and calls for him. And then from the top deck of the boat, he sees her, and he immediately comes down to her. And they kiss, and he says that he thought he'd never see her again, and she tells him that she loves him.
Yay.
Yay.
And then we see Carmen and Tibby having a stare off. It's really funny. And then Tibby slides Carmen the phone and gets her to call her dad.
This is what I need. Every time I have to make a phone call, I need someone to just sit across the table from me and be like, do it right now.
Wait, do you have phone anxiety also?
Oh, yeah. I hate the phone. I don't answer phone calls. I will call like my parents and my sisters, and that's it. Everyone out of that safe bubble, no phone calls.
If it's a pre-scheduled phone call, it's okay. Like if it's like, hey, I'm going to talk to you at X time, nothing is wrong, I'm good with that. But if it's like I have to call to make an appointment somewhere, oh no.
Nightmare. I will pick a doctor just because I can schedule them online.
Same. Wow. Are we the same person? I make Robert do phone calls for me sometimes.
Oh, me too. And sometimes I can tell sometimes Brian is like, well, we just need to call the vet and ask about blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, And I can tell that he's trying to be like, fly, little bird. You know? But then I've just started recently just being like, we just need to own that this is our flaw. And I'll just be like, can you do it? I'm not going to call.
So Tibby hands Carmen the phone and gets her to call her dad. And he tells her she doesn't even have to apologize because he knows she's upset. And she says he's never known because she's never been able to tell him she's angry with him. He apologizes for not telling her about Lydia and the kids earlier. Thank goodness he realized that was wrong. And she says it's more than that. It's that he found himself a new family and she feels like an outsider who doesn't even belong to him anymore. She asks if he's ashamed of her and asks why he left and promised they'd get closer and then they never did. And at this point she's bawling. And she says, and why does Paul visit his alcoholic dad every month, but you only visit me twice a year? And she asks why he seems so happy to be Paul and Krista's dad, but never had the time to be hers. And he says he's sorry, and she says she wishes that was enough. And she hangs up. Go, Carmen.
Go, Carmen. Tibby is back at Wallman's, and Bertie asks her where her little friend is, and says that a few weeks ago, Bailey noticed she was having a tough time and asks her if she wanted to talk. Bertie makes a comment that Bailey is very special that way. Then Tibby comes home to the pants and a note from Lena saying that the pants really are magic. So Tibby finally goes to the hospital to see Bailey, who says, it's about time you showed up. And she's lying in a hospital bed and she really does not look well. And we see that she's playing Dragon's Lair on a Game Boy, and she says that Brian came and dropped it off yesterday and said it wasn't as good as the real thing, but at least it would keep her practicing. Bailey's words are very labored, like she's breathing really heavily when she speaks, so you can tell she's definitely not doing well. And Tibby says that Bailey was right about Brian being a nice guy, and that Tibby was wrong about him, but she's wrong about most people. And Bailey says the important thing is you always change your mind about them.
Then Tibby pulls the traveling pants out of her bag and gives them to Bailey. She says Lena told her they really are magic, and for Lena to say that, it must be true. And then she starts crying and says she was thinking maybe Bailey could have them for a while. And Bailey says, they didn't fit me, remember? But Tibby says that doesn't really matter. She tells her she has to take them and let them help her. She says, I know that you're tired, but you can't give up. These pants will give you a miracle. You have to believe. And Bailey grabs her hand and says, the pants have already worked their magic on me. They brought me to you. And Tibby starts bawling, as do all of us.
I know.
I can't.
Tragic. The scene is tragic. It's so tragic. Like, just the desperation to see Tibby, who is like the least emotional of the group, do this like pleading is so upsetting.
Totally.
Later, we see that Tibby has crawled into Bailey's hospital bed with her, and Bailey says that she wants Tibby to do something for her. She tells her to finish her movie, and when Tibby asks why, Bailey says, because you can. And then Tibby wakes up to a phone call the next morning, and her mom answers, and Tibby immediately knows what the call is about and starts crying.
I hate this. Then back in Mexico, the soccer girls are headed back on the bus, and they're all singing, but this time Bridget isn't, and she just stares out the window. When her dad picks her up, he asks if they should go to Mario's to celebrate her homecoming, and she says she's too tired from the trip.
Then we're back to Tibby, and we see Tibby and Brian sitting outside the place that has the dragon's lair, and Tibby puts her head on his shoulder, and then later at home she's going through her videotapes, and she finds one marked B. And she loads it up, and it's the video that Bailey took when she was wearing the pants, the ones that we saw Bailey recording, but we don't know what she said, but Tibby had no idea that she did this. Bailey says, hey, it's me, Bailey. You don't have to use this in your movie or anything, although now that I think of it, feigning in Wallman's does kind of qualify me as a loser. But then again, wearing a price sticker on your forehead probably makes you one too. I don't know, Tibby. Maybe the truth is there's a little bit of loser in all of us, Being happy isn't having everything in your life be perfect. Maybe it's about stringing together all the little things, like wearing these pants, or getting to a new level of Dragon's Lair, making those count for more than the bad stuff. Maybe we just get through it, and that's all we can ask for. Ugh, it's like so tragic because it's the most perfect statement for Tibby's film, and she knows it.
Mm-hmm.
This was the underlying meaning of the whole thing.
I want to see the film so bad.
I know.
While packing, Lena finds the letter from Bridget under her bed, and she immediately calls Carmen, who later barges into Tibby's room and says, Bridget needs us.
Bridget is sleeping in her bed and wakes up to Tibby and Carmen at the foot of her bed. They bring her the pants, and they tell her to talk, because they obviously know what's going on because of Lena. They all sit on the floor and they eat pizza, and they talk about Bridget's mom, and Bridget says she just wants to feel good and happy and alive, because if she is, then it doesn't feel like her mom is dead. And if she doesn't let herself be sad, it proves she's not like her mom, who had a lot of sad spells. And the girls tell her she always has them, and they hug. This is like the most powerful scene in the whole movie to me, to just see these girls like understand what to say to their friend who is grieving their parent, and to be like, it's okay to be sad even though you're like scared of depression. It's not the same thing. Like, you can still grieve your mom, and that doesn't mean that you're going to leave like she did. And to like have them, like see them have the wherewithal to like have that conversation with her, I thought was just really cool.
They're all very mature.
Yeah.
And they're all very good friends to each other.
Yes.
I really appreciate that. Lena leaves Santorini on a donkey, and this time she's much more comfortable and confident. And she waves bye to her family. She tells her papu she'll miss him, and she says this in Greek. And then he says he'll miss her too in English.
The next morning, Bridget's golden retriever Maggie steals the pants and runs out the front door with them. Bridget chases Maggie down the street and runs into Eric. Eric hands her the pants that Maggie was holding and says he was actually looking for her. And he says what happened between them was his fault, and she said, basically, it's okay. She wanted it for all the wrong reasons. And all the things that she was trying to run away from just ended up catching up with her sooner because of it. And they agree to be friends, and he tells her that when she's 20 and a huge soccer star, she'll have to give him a shot.
Does he know that she's 16 at this point, or does he still think she's 17?
I don't know, but I weirdly really appreciate him going out of his way to like drive to her house to say, I'm responsible for that and I'm sorry. I just don't think there's a lot of teenage boys that have the wherewithal to be like, that was wrong and I should go talk to her about it.
Do we know how old he is? Do we have any idea?
No, just college. I still don't like it. I don't like that it happened, but I think the way that they ended it was actually nice.
I like that it's like, okay, we're just friends.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Then the girls all meet Lena at the airport and they go, oh my God. And like they all kind of say it at different times. You'll remember it because she looks completely different to them when she walks off the plane. They're still in the airport and the girls convince Carmen to go to her dad's wedding, and they end up road tripping together to South Carolina. And in the car, Lena asks how Tibby's succumentary turned out. And Tibby says it turned out different than she expected. And Lena asks if it has a title, I think. And Tibby says she thinks she's going to call it Bailey.
Then the girls are at a diner knocking on the restroom door to get Carmen to come out. Somehow, all of the girls have dresses to wear to this wedding, but they didn't think to pack one for Carmen to wear. Anyway, Bridget gives Carmen the pants and tells her that they'll make her brave. And Carmen says she can't wear jeans to a wedding, and besides, Bridget's week isn't up. And Bridget makes up rule number 11, in the event of an emergency, the pants will automatically go to the sister in need, regardless of the schedule.
Cute. And the girls all arrive at the wedding, and Carmen's dad notices her in the audience and pauses the entire wedding. And he says, there's an important member of our family who should be up here with us, my daughter. And he goes to her and holds out his hand. And she says she's not dressed, but he says, I need you. And he hugs her while she sobs. And then he escorts her up the aisle, and Lydia holds out her hand for her, which I do appreciate that I do think Lydia has tried her best to be welcoming this whole time. It just hasn't really worked out for her.
Mm-hmm.
So I like this moment at the end where she kind of reaches out to her. And then Lydia and her dad get married with the whole family together at the altar.
And then we see all the girls together giggling at the reception, and we get another Carmen voiceover. She says, it would be easy to say that the pants changed everything that summer, But looking back now, I feel like our lives changed because they had to, and that the real magic of the pants was in bearing witness to all of this, and in somehow holding us together when I felt like nothing would ever be the same again. Some things never would be. Then Lena's voice jumps into the voiceover and says, "But we knew now that no matter how far we traveled on our own separate paths," and then Bridget says, "somehow we would always find our way back to one another." And then Tibby says, "And with that, we could get through anything." And then there's this very cute part at the end of the voiceover where the girls all keep switching out who's talking. And they say,
"To us, who we were and who we are and who will be.
To the pants.
And the sisterhood.
And this moment and the rest of our lives." And then all of them say, "Together and apart."
Aww.
Cute.
I did hear an interview where the girls were talking about this scene at the reception where they're all kind of sitting and giggling and talking. And the girls said they were just talking for hours and the director didn't even have to tell them to go because they were just already going. And so at the end, when you see them all talking at the reception, that's actually them just being friends. I thought that was cute.
I love that.
And then we get the end credits and they show the pants and the adventures that they all wrote on them at the end of the summer, just like they said they would in the rules. Like there's one part that says "hooked on cutest," and then there's another part near the pocket that says "Bailey was here" with a bunch of star gems around it. And I just thought that was really sweet. It was a nice touch.
It's very cute. That's the end.
Yay!
Yay!
I love this movie. It was so good. It held up.
Highly recommend.
Yes. And then there was the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants 2 in 2008. Have you seen it? I don't remember it, but I know I would if I started watching it.
Same.
I've definitely seen it. And then there was supposed to be a third one, Sisterhood Everlasting, based on the 5th and last book of the series, which takes place 10 years after the first movie. But it's been stalled. And in 2022, Amber Tamblyn, who plays Tibby, said that she hopes it still gets made, and it's been really complicated, partly because the 4 of them have so many children among them. But she said that all 4 of them hope to work together again. And Blake Lively also said that she and her co-stars pitched the movie and that it really could happen, but that was back in 2018.
Bummer. I would love for that to come out. I feel like they all probably would have loved doing it, but it makes sense. They all work a lot and they all have kids. So I'm sure the scheduling around like people being pregnant and having tiny children, and all of them also have spouses that work in entertainment. So I'm sure it's just very complicated timing.
Yeah, I hope that they're able to do it. I have faith because they're all friends that it will happen. So we'll see.
Fingers crossed.
I would love to cover a Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants 3 on here. So
I know. And if you guys want us to do Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants 2, you know I love a sequel.
Month of sequels, guys. Just kidding. Maybe.
If you liked this episode, consider leaving us a 5-star rating and a good review. It helps the podcast a lot.
And thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
Bye.